music, music, music. I say that because we have the Essex Piano Trio in studio, and I will introduce them. We will hear a little bit about them, and then we will hear a piece and see a piece that they performed at the Thomas Crane Public Library not so long ago. So introducing everybody first, welcome you all.
Thank you.
Ashley Offred.
Yes.
Beverly Saul, and David Cabral. So Essex Piano Trio. Talk about the group, when it got started, and I guess where you've been playing. You're pretty much in New England, right? A performance group in New England. But let's talk about the trio.
All right. From our outset in 2017, we were all of us working in and around Salem. I was teaching at the university, and Ashley and I had done a couple of gigs together, and David. And so David, I think, suggested, wouldn't it be nice if we played some music together? And we tried it, and we loved it. And here we are. All these years later, we named ourselves. We started growing repertoire and the kinds of programming, the way we wanted to interact with our audience. And so it's been a journey through the pandemic, and even now we're still growing, and we love it.
So how did you decide on the name?
I think that was my idea. Simply just because all three of us live in Essex County in Massachusetts. I live in Lynn, Ashley lives in Salem, and Beverly in Rockport.
So you had mentioned that you are a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So talk about, and I'll ask you all to talk about your background maybe prior to the Essex Piano Trio.
Well, I've lived all over the country and been a college professor of sorts or an arts administrator at one institution or two institutions as well. So there was always music as part of who I was, as part of who I was interacting with. I accompanied lots and lots of young singers and instrumentalists. I taught history classes. I wrote a book on William Grant Still. So I'm immersed in music, but to be immersed in chamber music like this is a special world. It's different from the other things.
David?
Unlike these two, I actually don't make my living in music. Even though I consider myself a professional musician, I work in medicine, in pediatric cardiology. I'm an ultrasound tech. And so that just gives me a balance between, making a living that has a little bit more security for me, but then making music that, the kind of music that I want to do, and the collaborations.
Ashley?
As Dave said, I do make my living as a musician. I have a studio of students that I teach. I do violin, viola, and piano, and I freelance. So I do, other than the Essex Piano Trio, I do a lot of orchestra work all over New England. I'm in Rhode Island, I'm in New Hampshire all the time, so.
I would assume that music has always been part of your lives from an early age.
Yeah, very true for me. I actually like a lot of different kinds of music, and I don't strictly play classical. I also play Celtic music and have another group I play with, and the cellist in that group as well. But I love different genres of music and being able to play different styles.
Beverly?
I started studying when I was, taking lessons when I was 8, but by the time I was 15, I knew that being a classical pianist was what I wanted to do, and that for a little Louisiana girl was kind of an unusual aspiration.
Ashley, maybe your influences?
Maybe.
Maybe. We can talk about something else.
I lucked out. My mother is a music teacher, so I always had music, and I don't even remember starting to play and read music. When I started teaching, I had to learn how to teach someone to read music because I was learning to read music and read words at the same time. So my brain, it's always been there and always been a huge part of my life. So I got lucky in that respect.
Talk about, I guess, and again, you can all talk about this, the challenge of chamber music, the challenge of classical music, and the fact that when people come to listen to you, there isn't really improvisation going on classical pieces, correct?
Not on a good day.
I love that question because the challenges are almost what make it so much fun. We have a great rehearsal workflow, I guess, lack of a better word. But that kind of thing develops over a long period of time. I think, people can get together and play chamber music, but when you get together regularly with colleagues and friends and you have a similar approach, those challenges become really interesting and a lot of fun to work through. We have, actually, the three of us have very different approaches to the music. Some a more technical approach, some a more emotional approach. But I think the collaboration between the three of us worked so well. And that's why I think our performances are so much fun to listen to, but also to watch too, because of the chemistry we share.
Talk about that, Ashley, and maybe where you fall on what Dave just said.
Yeah, well, listen, I'm definitely the more technical one, constantly critiquing Dave, like, make sure you vibrate on that note. But I do think that's maybe the mathematical part of it that you were alluding to earlier, where it's that part of my brain kind of kicks in the rehearsal, and maybe also my training more as the orchestral musician. So that is very much about being so precise with the rest of your group. So I hear that first, and then playing with you allows me to express myself differently and scratch a different musical itch, I guess.
It's true. And having played together for so long, we've kind of gotten used to how each of us approaches, and we give each other room for that. So there's room during rehearsals for talking about technique, and then we make room for talking about music and what it means and how you feel about it.
So is it safe to say, or a possibility, that you might have three talented musicians that don't play together often, that don't quite connect?
You hear recordings by very famous people playing beautiful pieces, but without the love of the piece and the love of the partnership. And that doesn't make them less wonderful, but it makes it a less homogenized, unified
Right.
creation.
Instead of a cohesive group, it's three individuals, like three individual soloists.
And you hear the fights. I mean,
We're a little bit unique in that respect too. A lot of trios will rehearse when they have a gig, and we rehearse no matter what, including through the pandemic. We only had a short break, and then we found a place where it was safe for us to practice together, and we recorded 2 concerts that were just completely released online during that time, just to give us that outlet. We didn't really care if anyone watched them, I think.
And to maintain the connection with each other.
Absolutely, we crave that. When we don't get it for a few weeks, we get cranky.
It's true.
No one likes cranky musicians. Let's talk about instruments of choice. Violin.
Yeah, I started as a pianist.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, just because as a little toddler, someone offered my mom some free piano lessons. So that's how I started. And I still play piano a lot. I enjoy it, just not professionally. When I started playing violin, I realized I enjoyed the communal aspect of that music making, like an orchestra when there are 20 of us blending together. That's really exciting to me. But then I also get that community aspect here in a different way.
And you might kind of fill me in on this, but I believe, at least when I was going to school, that string instruments were the first instruments that a student could learn, and then brass and reeds were after that. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah. So developmentally, a child's muscles are not ready. For example, the way that you play a trumpet, you can hurt yourself if you start too young. And they make smaller string instruments for smaller players. I don't know if you've seen the little wee ones. They're adorable. Just that big.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Now that you say that. Beverly, the piano?
the piano always. My family, to be honest, couldn't afford to put me in any kind of program with band or orchestra. But an old piano had come my way, and my aunt's house had a piano that was a sacred place that I could go and play. And so there was never any question. I play harpsichord too, but primarily piano. But I don't like playing it all by myself mostly, although I do occasionally.
And a pianist certainly can.
They can and do. But for me, the world of working with singers and poetry, huge part of my world. And then working with young string and and wind players to teach them that their instrument and mine should mesh. That it wasn't just them on stage, it was the two of us as partners. And that partnership I've loved. And so expanding it to three, it's a wonderful three-way finding the love in the music. So I wouldn't have anything else.
David?
As far as my instrument choice, I'm a little bit of a jack of all trades. I don't necessarily express myself in with one instrument necessarily. I play cello the most. It's probably the instrument I'm most comfortable with. But I also play the viola. I've played the viola and the cello all my life. And it kind of depends on my mood and the genre of music that we're playing. For instance, chamber music or piano trio, obviously I play the cello. But sometimes if I'm playing in a string quartet, for instance, I love playing the viola because I love that middle voice, that kind of the darkness and the sadness that the viola brings. And then there's, the cello, which brings power and so much emotion. So yeah, I can't get enough. So I try to play them all.
You're also forgetting the fife
And the harp.
Celtic harp.
Yes, and the Celtic
Guitar.
group I play with, I also play the harp.
And the oboe. We went for a while.
You've got quite a few favorite instruments.
Yeah.
I guess talk about maybe when you all learned to read music, because musicians may start out playing by ear, but at some point the musician really needs to know at least the basics about the written notes. No?
And I would say that's true for the classical music, not so much for folk music.
Okay.
There's many different ways to approach music. I think in a classical genre, it really does come with being able to read the music and understand it, what the composer wanted, and the style of the composer.
I've been reading notes as long as I've been reading words. There's no difference for me.
So you did start by reading notes on the piano. Ashley?
Yeah, so did I. But I think you're alluding to something interesting is our job as classical musicians definitely playing every dot and dash on the page, which is something jazz musicians, for example, it's not as important or key to them. But also interpreting the style because our genre covers hundreds of years of music. And
They're all different.
our instruments were very different 300 years ago versus now. The program that we're bringing to you, most of the music is from 150, 175 years ago. So the style is different from something that we might play that was written yesterday. So being aware of that, we're also reading behind the music, I guess you could say.
I want to pick up on that because talk about how the Essex Piano Trio decides upon a particular program.
Usually I come at it and I'm like, let's play this really hard giant piece of music. And then Bev is like, I'm going to put all these pretty things around it and make this beautiful, cohesive program, right? Would you say that's kind of how it works?
So bringing different
that,
composers.
Bev truly is this is where she shines, I think, is creating a program, a cohesive program that an audience would enjoy.
She's like our curator of programs.
But if the music is not packaged, at least for the audiences we play for, in a way that makes sense, I don't think they get as much out of it. If you're going to a concert downtown in Boston or the Shaolin Lu, there are maybe different expectations, but our audiences don't often have that much experience. And what we're trying to do is keep an art form alive that is so magical to us. And the only way we can do that is by talking to the audience and helping them understand that, okay, this is a smaller piece in whatever style. This is a really big one. You're going to have to concentrate, but here's how you're going to do it. And audiences will listen to almost anything if you prepare them well for it, and if it makes sense when it's done. If the entity, and that's where we've come to, we call it conversation among friends,
Right.
the concerts that we play, because there's always, as we've grown, it took us a few years to get there, but that's kind of the essence of what we're doing. If something really makes sense as an artistic unit, then we've got a sellable product that I think is beautiful.
Spoken like a true teacher.
Yeah, and we try to in some other classical music programs. The focus can be on maybe 2 big works or 3 big works. We try to highlight one masterpiece, one work from a composer, and then enhance it by the music around it.
Have anything to add? Or I have a question for you if you don't on this
Well,
particular
I was
topic.
just thinking too, another thing you do well in the process of engaging with the audience is you help personify these people who have mostly been dead for a very long time. And so it's not just a conversation among these friends, we're also kind of conversing with these composers and our rituals where we engage with them in our rehearsals. So
Yeah.
And that's going to springboard me actually onto something else, and that's classical music is still being written. So even though some of the programs that you perform, the music goes back 100 or so years, do you get into any modern classical music as well as the Essex Piano Trio?
Yeah, a few years ago, excuse me, we actually commissioned a brand new work. We were lucky to perform at the Peabody Essex Museum, and we took some epitaphs from some of the tombstones in the cemetery behind the museum and had them set to music with a singer. So it was us plus the singer. So it's a brand new work. We commissioned, we performed it, the composer was there with us, and the whole process was just fascinating. Completely different style than we were used to as well. I think it took a lot of adjustment for us to figure out how to help the music speak. But I was happy with the results.
But our other program that we're doing now, I think the earliest piece is 1944 and the latest is 2008. So it's a whole different sound palette. And that the audience will have to adapt to a little bit as well. But I think we can do it gracefully so that they will think it's an interesting place to be.
For folks, now there's a special treat. We will actually have for you a performance that the Essex Piano Trio played at the Thomas Crane Public Library not too long ago.
So just the tiniest bit about Schumann, one of the most important composers, mid-19th century, famously known for mental illness, which is unfortunate, and ended up trying to commit suicide, dying in an asylum at a fairly young age. But he gave us lots of beautiful music. And because I think of his sort of scattered mental status, the short forms are the loveliest that he does, I think. The small piano pieces, the small trio pieces, because he focuses well when he doesn't have to concentrate for a real long time. So that's a good thing. So today we're hearing two movements of his first piano trio. The first is simply a little romance, very pretty, very song-like, and the second is called Humoresque, which was fun. It's a little bit childlike. You hear that a lot in Schumann's music. And in this, we feel like we're almost one instrument. He doesn't spread us out and make us do unusual things. We're very homogeneous in our approach. So we hope you will enjoy these two movements from Schumann. So, short and sweet, that was Schumann. Hope you enjoyed it.